please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
We've got a news alert on Disney and Altice. Julia Borston has that for us. Julia?
That's right. Disney and Altice, owner of the Optimum cable service, announcing a comprehensive distribution agreement after the media giant and the cable company battled over the value of Disney's channels. Altice called out the value of ESPN in particular. Now, Disney saying that this new, and Altice saying that this new comprehensive multi-year agreement reinforces the multi-channel business model. And they say that the two companies expect to collaborate on ESPN's direct-to-consumer product, which is slated to launch in early 2018. They say they've agreed to leverage Altice USA's data analytics platform. Of course, Kelly, this comes at a time that there's a lot of talk about cord cutting and the value of that cable bundle. It seems like these two companies are going to keep it going for some time. Back over to you.
Julia, thank you. And Mike, the shares of Altice actually are up 4.5%.
That's an interesting twist, that distribution agreement to cooperate down the road. I always wonder, once they finally come to an agreement, the cable networks and the cable distributors, if they say, I was sorry about all those nasty things that said about you along the way.
Let's get to the closing bell mailbag, shall we? Speaking of nasty things people have said. Anyway, viewers are responding to Netflix raising subscription fees today. John tweets, Netflix will just start adding a couple commercials per show. They can get huge money for 2 30-second spots on top shows. But I think that would hurt. I think the subscribers would hate it.
I think that's a tremendous leap that Netflix has no interest in taking. They simply don't have to.
On our Facebook page, we asked if customers would switch if prices get too high. Delia commented, no, I still think it's a good value, but I have noticed there are fewer things on Netflix I'm interested in watching these days. Hulu has been more watched in our household, Mike.
I was saying earlier that price is not the top of the list of complaints about Netflix. It's either the speed of the, of the feed, or it's the library.
And importantly, my glasses have caused a little bit of a stir. This is my favorite. Dilip and many others emailed in to write, sorry, but it hit us instantly. The glasses look like they came from Rick Perry.
I don't know what
and honestly,
he is actually looking like.
I see it.
I mean, how about
Wait, I turned the wrong way.
Sandra
Let's try
Bullock
this way.
wears glasses that look like, I mean, you can get a lot closer than Rick Perry, I think.
He is my lodestar, my inspiration.
Well,
is that what lodestar means?
Lodestar is like your beacon, right?
Yes, there we go. I need the glasses to see it properly. Shall we have a look at a couple of the earnings movers here? Costco and Yum China both reported results after hours. Costco's numbers beat, but the stock was moving lower at last check. It's currently back up by about 1%. Meanwhile, Yum China, its gains have been paired.
Yeah, I mean, also the pattern where you had the first reaction, the wrong one. Costco is interesting. The question is it going to be able to hold on to this premium multiple that it's had forever, 28 times earnings?
I only moved on to quell my embarrassment. Please keep your comments coming because we love it. We love the mailbag. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Michael, for joining us today.
Deal Street is back in action. It's that one big deal idea that can change your business forever. Separate the buzz from the real news by getting the inside story and stay ahead of the curve when big deals are in the works.
Big Deal at these times only on CNBC TV18. This is TV18 and you're watching CNBC TV18.
Power Breakfast brought to you by Renault Capture.
Good morning and welcome to Power Breakfast in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Anisha Jain and with me is Nigel D'Souza. Good morning, Nigel.
Morning, Anisha. Good global cues is what we're getting today. 8th straight session, the US markets ended in the green. So the start should be in the positive terrain. End of the week, let's see where we go.
Well, yes, hopefully it is a happy Friday. But first up, let's run you through the top stories at this hour then. Record rally continues on Wall Street. US market gains for 8th session. Asia too opens on a positive note. All eyes on US jobs report due later today.
And the GST Council may announce steps to ease compliance burden. Measures like quarterly returns for small businesses, deferral or reverse charge mechanism till March, and export refunds via e-wallet are likely today. The Council may also announce that there will be no retrospective inquiry into VAT regime matters. That's a CNBC TV18 exclusive.
The Uday Kotak-led Committee on Corporate Governance Reform submits its report to SEBI, recommends at least 6 directors on the board of a listed company with 1 independent woman director. also suggests splitting the roles of chairman and MD CEO. SEBI gives time for public comments till 4th November.
And Future Retail is set to acquire supermart chain Hypercity for over 650 crore rupees. Hypercity to become a wholly owned subsidiary of Future Retail once the deal is completed in the next 3 to around 5 months. All right, then let's take a quick check on the Asian markets. Remember, today the big global cue that we'll be watching out for will be the US non-farm payrolls data. Remember, the session in Asia, well, it's holding in the green, at least the Nikkei. The close in US markets was positive. Remember, we have a couple of markets like the Chinese as well as the South Korean market. Both of them lucky then they're shut for public holidays. But the Nikkei is holding in the green. Let's pull up the other couple of markets that are opened. The Straits, the Taiwanese index as well should come up for you. So it's green on the screen to kickstart trade. And that would mean that the SGX Nifty as well will indicate a positive start. After yesterday, we saw a bit of red breaking the winning streak that we were enjoying. So maybe a 20 to around a 25-point bump up is what we could brace ourselves for.
Okay, and on Wall Street, the record rally continues after Congress passed a budget resolution, a step that is seen as setting the stage for an overhaul of the tax code. The S&P 500 completed its longest winning streak in 4 years. The Nasdaq and Dow both hit intraday and closing records. CNBC's Hampton Pearson gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
Stocks rose to record highs again on Thursday, with optimism over a tax overhaul increasing as Congress moved closer to an agreement on the budget resolution. The U.S. House of Representatives voted to adopt the fiscal 2018 spending blueprint, containing a legislative tool that would let Republicans bypass Democrats and pass a tax bill by a simple majority vote in the Senate, where they have a 2-seat majority. Data points underlying strength in the economy despite weather-related disruptions, with the trade deficit narrowing in August and jobless claims falling more than expected. Last week, it's a Friday the 13th jobs Friday here in the U.S., hiring likely slowing down quite a bit in September, mostly because of the impact of Hurricanes Harvey and Irma. Economists are forecasting 80,000 new jobs added, less than half the year's monthly average, the jobless rate holding at 4.4%, again, expected to stay the same. So at the closing bell, we had the Dow rising 113 points, the S&P tacking on 14, recording its longest winning streak since 1997. That would be 20 years. And the Nasdaq gaining 50 points. Shares of Netflix jumping 5% after the company raised the monthly subscription fees for 2 of its 3 main U.S. account services, if you will. Amazon up 1.6% after the world's largest online retailer said it was testing its own delivery service, potentially encroaching on the territory of package delivery companies like United Parcel Services and FedEx. A lot going on. All back over to you.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to announce soon that he will decertify the landmark international deal to curb Iran's nuclear program, in a step that potentially could cause the 2015 accord to unravel. Trump, remember, has been weighing whether the pact serves the U.S. security interest as he faces an October 15 deadline for certifying that Iran is complying with it.
We must not allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons. The Iranian regime supports terrorism and exports violence, bloodshed, and chaos across the Middle East. That is why we must put an end to Iran's continued aggression and nuclear ambitions. They have not lived up to the spirit of their agreement.
And market participants are continuing to banter back and forth on who President Trump will pick as the next Fed chair and what will that mean for the markets across the globe. Here's a look at the candidates Trump is considering, though there's no guarantee that a dark horse doesn't come in for a market surprise. Now, Trump has met with the current chair, Janet Yellen, National Economic Council Director Gary Cohn, Fed Board Governor Jerome Powell, and former Governor Kevin Walsh as he considers who he wants to head the U.S. Central Bank. The decision is expected sometime this month, though that simply begins a long process of confirmations. And International Monetary Fund Chief Christine Lagarde said that a worldwide economy recovery is taking hold, opening a window for countries to enact reforms aimed at attaining broader, lasting prosperity. Listen in.
I would hope that people understand that they should not let a good recovery go to waste. And they should take advantage of that recovery to actually drive change that will make recovery more sustainable, more inclusive, and more balanced.
Well, European markets, they closed more or less mixed in trade yesterday. They were trading closer to the flat line. The DAX ended as flat as can be. But the CAC as well as the FTSE, both of them, they ended in the red. Well, investors, they monitored political events and also took a cautious approach ahead of the key data today. That's the US jobs data that's due later today. But clearly, the big outperformer yesterday was Spanish stocks. We had the index that was up more than 2%. It bounced back after news emerged that Spain's constitutional court has suspended a session of the Catalan parliament that was due to take place on Monday. Remember, if that session took place, political leaders were expected to declare Catalonia's independence from Spain. So that has been averted, and that's what explains why we had the Spanish index yesterday up more than 2.5%. Remember, even after this bounce back, that market's still down more than 1.5% for this week itself. But pulling up a couple of those emerging markets as well. They were traded mostly in the green in trade yesterday, both the Brazilian as well as the Russian index. In fact, the Russian index ended with a gain of closer to 0.5%.
Okay, then let's just focus to the currency space now. The US dollar index rose to a 7-week high as data pointed to solid US growth before Friday's highly anticipated jobs report for September. The US trade deficit fell in August as exports of goods and services rose to its highest level in more than 2.5 years, while the number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits fell more than expected last week.
Okay, then in the world of commodities and crude oil prices, they bounced back overnight actually, though early this morning they're indicating a bit of a negative take. But yesterday, if they were higher, remember Saudi Arabia and Russia, they would extend production cuts. That's the news that came overnight. Although record US exports and return of supply from Libyan oil field, that's what really offset some of those gains. Saudi Arabia and Russia have signed billions of deals after King Salman's historic visit to Moscow. Both the countries have vowed to continue stabilizing the oil market. The oil deals of both these two countries could total around $3 billion.
Prices are not for me or for His Excellency Novak to determine. They are ultimately for the markets to determine based on marginal cost of productions and expectations of supply and demand. But as I think of fundamentals, I am more optimistic than I have been in the last 2-3 years. Demand is healthy around the world.
From the precious metal space, gold dipped after strong US economic data lifted the dollar and underlined expectations that US interest rates would be hiked.
Well, time to slip into a short break. When you come back, we'll tell you all the cues that are stacked up for us when we open up a trade in the next couple of hours.
Welcome back. Well, back home on the last read, the market snapped a 4-day gaining streak. Nifty closes below the 9900 mark and the Sensex loses 0.25%. Now, ICICI Bank, ITC and HDFC were the really key indicators that added to the Nifty pressure, but the broader markets outperformed with mid-cap index gaining over 100 points. But how does the market set up for today? Ekta joins us now to tell us more. Good morning, Ekta. Over to you.
Well, morning, Anisha. Yes, absolutely. Like you mentioned yesterday, it was quite a consolidatory session, at least for the frontliners. So the Nifty consolidated, ended sub 9,900, but the mid-cap index really outperformed, with the advanced decline ratio remaining steady for most of the trading sessions. So now the near-term range, at least for the Nifty, seems to be anywhere between 9,700 to 10,000 at this point in time. But I would watch out for the mid-cap outperformance. So the mid-caps, for example, were up around 1.4% at current reckoning on a week-to-date basis, with the Nifty versus the Nifty, which is up around 1-odd%. Now, this morning, if you have to talk about the cues, the global markets, S&P has posted its first 8-day winning streak since 2013. But honestly, we haven't really worked in tandem with what's happening with the global cues. Just an anecdotal piece of evidence would be that the Hang Seng is up around 2.5%, 3% this week, versus us, which is up around 1-odd%. So not really a direct correlation with what's happening with the globe. Again, the trend in terms of the FII's net selling continues. So that's around 600 crores from their stable, while the DIIs have bought around 519 odd crores. But today, the trigger, I think, for our markets would definitely be the GST Council meet, which is taking place. It is expected to start in the morning at around 10:30, 11, and probably go on up till post-market. So there are tax cuts which are likely, and that would be something which the market would be watching out for very, very closely. The other key triggers, maybe a little more medium term, would be earnings. We are going to start getting numbers trickling in, such as Indicin, Infi, all of these, and obviously the rupee stabilizing at this point in time because of the over 3% appreciation that we've seen since the month of August for the rupee. So currently the SGX is indicating that yes, it could be a positive start, maybe mainly because of one, yes, what's happening with the globe to a certain extent, and secondly, more importantly, in terms of what's happening locally with regards to the GST Council meet.
Okay, Ekta, interesting session coming up for us. Stocks that we could focus on today?
Well, I'll start with IDFC Shriram, which have extended their agreement for negotiation of the deal till the 8th of November. So that's interesting. Future Retail acquired 100% stake of Hypercity for 655 odd crores. I'll keep Shoppers Stop on my radar as well. I expect that stock to definitely be in positive terrain today. SBI has put 24 accounts for sale to ARCs and NBFCs and banks. So that stock should be in focus. Separately, not yet listed, but nonetheless, Godrej Agrovet in focus because its IPO has now been subscribed 2.37 times by the end of day 2. IDBI Bank has got shareholder nod to issue an allot equity shares up to 1861 crores to the government. The CCI has fined AB Group firm Grasim others for bid in rigging of Delhi Jal Board tenders. So that would be in focus. And lastly, Phoenix Mills, they have acquired some land parcel in Pune worth around 21 crores along with the Canadian pension plan. So I'd keep that stock on my radar as well.
Okay, Ekta, thank you for giving us all those stocks and the market setup. But time now for a quick break. Coming up ahead, booster shot for economy. All eyes on crucial GST meet today. We tell you what is expected from this meeting after the short break. Stay tuned.
Well, all eyes will be on the crucial GST meeting today. The government also plans to introduce a slew of measures to reduce compliance burden for small taxpayers that are struggling under the country's new indirect tax system, that's GST, which was rolled out from July 1st. Now, we learned that the GST Council may clear quarterly returns for small businesses, also that the reverse charge mechanism may be deferred till March, and reopened registration for compensation scheme for the third time to March 31st, 2018. The other important development that we are picking up is that the Council may hasten tax refunds for exporters battling cash crunch and also allow export refund to be done through an e-wallet and also on the agenda exemption from retrospective inquiry into the previous value-added tax regime. That's with regard to some tax matters.
Remember, just earlier this week, the Prime Minister on the rollout of GST acknowledged that teething troubles do exist, but he also assured the businesses that all their issues will be fixed.
GST Council की मीटिंग के लिए मैंने उनसे कहा है कि अब 3 साल हो गए हैं, हम पूरी तरह उसका रिव्यू करें और जहां-जहां बॉटलनेक है, कठिनाइयां हैं, व्यापारी आलम को दिक्कत है, टेक्नोलॉजी की दिक्कत है, फॉर्म भरने की दिक्कत है, जो भी दिक्कत है उसको एक बार रिव्यू किया जाए और सभी पॉलिटिकल पार्टियां, सभी सरकारें, क्योंकि सभी राज्य सरकार में कोई न कोई पॉलिटिकल पार्टी है, मिल करके इसको क्या बदलाव करने की आवश्यकता होगी उस पर करें। और मैं देश के व्यापारी आलम को विश्वास दिलाना चाहता हूं, हम लकीर के फकीर नहीं है और हम कभी ये दावा नहीं करते सब ज्ञान हमको ही है, लेकिन सही दिशा में जाने का प्रयास है। जहां कहीं रुकावटें हैं, 3 महीने में जो अनुभव आया है उसके आधार पर आवश्यक जो भी बदलाव करना होगा, सुधार करना होगा, ये सरकार आपके साथ है।
Whatever glitches come in way of these decisions, those glitches are removed. For instance, the credit of exporters being blocked is one issue which has come to notice. The excessive compliance burden on the small and medium enterprises has come to notice. And I am sure when the GST Council meets on the 6th of this month, the finance ministers of the states also are equally concerned about the businesses in their states. And therefore, all these issues will be factored in those meetings. And I'm sure they will find an appropriate response and a remedy as far as these issues are concerned.
Well, shifting focus, and Uday Kotak-led SEBI Committee on Corporate Governance has submitted its report. Now, the committee has recommended splitting of roles of chairman and the MD CEO for listed companies. It has also suggested that independent directors should make up at least half of every company's board and should attend at least half of the board meets. A minimum of 6 independent directors, including at least one lady director, should be appointed on the board of a listed company. A formal induction is mandatory for every new independent director as well.
And the committee has proposed disclosure of the expertise of the directors being appointed, increasing the number of board meetings from 4 to 5 every year, and capping the maximum number of directorships to 7 by April 2020. The market regulator has sought public comments on the report and has set 4th November as the deadline for that.
Well, 8 members of SEBI's corporate governance panel have spoken exclusively to CNBC TV18. In these exclusive interactions, the panel members said that protection of minority shareholders is a core pillar of their proposals. Some of them also added that the idea to serve each shareholder of a company was the key thinking behind the panel's report. Here are excerpts of our interactions with the SEBI's panel members.
The board has 2 big purposes. One is the fiduciary to all the stakeholders. The second is adding value to their investment in some sense, to strategic thinking and so forth. For the latter aspect, if you don't have the right mix of expertise, the board cannot do its job. And then fundamentally, the board must do its job. They've got to be enough members to attend meetings, have quota, etc. They've got to attend the meetings. They've got to be mechanisms in which they can evaluate themselves on how the board is performing. So the whole idea of the report in the board section was to strengthen the role of independent directors, to move towards having a separate chairman and chief executive over time, and really emphasizing that independent directors and boards have a great responsibility in improving corporate governance.
There is a much higher degree and focus that the committee felt should be highlighted on the role of the independent directors. I think that there were several issues where related party transactions were re-looked at and a bit of squeezing and tightening on that. There was a requirement of some policies to be framed and put in place, like materiality, information sharing, etc. And I think one of the things that we decided was to separate in time to come and give a path forward of the roles of the non-exec chairman and the managing director.
The agenda was how to enhance governance levels in Indian companies, and that really truly was the agenda. Now, the terms of reference of the committee are in public domain.
Yeah.
So under each term of reference, there is a chapter which has been devoted, and that chapter deals with, the various details with regard to that particular point.
The report has a lot of important recommendations, and I think cumulatively it should definitely move the needle for better corporate governance. A bigger focus on genuine independence, both from a criteria point of view as well as from a spirit point of view. So there were a lot of loopholes that existed and which were being exploited. So hopefully most of them have been plugged.
Today the system is that the promoter has all the information that is there in the company, but it is without any institutional mechanism. The committee felt that rather than trying to control it and abolishing it, because you have no means to control it, then you will never know, everything will remain in grey. So it is better to legitimize it and bring it in a transparent manner. So that is one of the key changes that the committee has done, is the legitimacy of information sharing with promoters or major shareholders in a transparent manner and with certain safeguards.
We also increased disclosures around estimates that need to mandatorily be made by management when accounts are qualified on the impact assessment itself. The second area was really around the whole concept of material subsidiaries and the governance around material subsidiaries. As you know, material subsidiaries were subsidiaries where you had 20% was the threshold. And the committee deliberated and thought that perhaps a 10% threshold for the material unlisted subsidiaries would be more appropriate.
Well, Kishore Biyani's Future Retail will acquire Shoppers Stop loss-making retail chain Hypercity. Now, this is Future Retail's fifth major acquisition in the past 4 years and will add more than 1 million square feet of retail space to the company. Priya Sheth, who was on top of the story, joins us now with more details. Priya, what do you?
Well, in what has turned out to be Kishore Biyani's fifth acquisition in the recent times, especially in the food and grocery space, Future Retail has acquired Hypercity Supermarkets. The deal has been done at about 655 crore rupees. And through this deal, Hypercity Retail India Limited will become a wholly owned subsidiary of the company. In fact, the acquisition is likely to be completed over the next 3 to 5 months is what we do understand. And as far as this deal is concerned, about 1.24 million square foot of retail space will be added as far as Future Retail is concerned. Now, what's in this deal for Future Retail? It's a win-win for both the companies is what analysts are saying, but especially for Future Group, the deal will help consolidate its position in Western India. It will also complement its big bazaar model of hypermarkets that it has been running. For Shoppers Stop, it's a big boost as far as margins are concerned. It will also help the retailer focus on its core garmenting business, of course. This has been a space that Shoppers Stop has been looking at aggressively expanding into as well. So therefore, we'll keep you updated as to how this pans out for both the companies and how Future Group really works on turning around operations as far as Hypercity is concerned.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Priya. Well, let's slip into a short break, but coming up ahead, MAS Financial Services initial share sale offer is set to open for subscription today. Details after the short break. Well, MAS Financial Services initial share sale offer is set to open today for subscription with a price span of around 456 to around 459 rupees per share. Abhishek's with us. He's going to run us through all the details. Hi, Abhishek. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. So this is a diversified NBFC. So if we have to compare this, you can compare it with the likes of Chola Mandalam, Shriram City Union Finance, etc. So this NBFC actually has MSE portfolio of close to 58% and SME portfolio of close to 24%. The other diversified area that it has is two-wheeler financing, CV financing and housing financing. Each of them forming less than 10% of its book. So I mean individually. in this IPO, there are two things. One is fresh issue and then there is offer for sale. So you have a fresh issue of close to 233 crores and offer for sale from 3 investors that runs about to 227 crores. Let's take our viewers through the SWOT analysis of this IPO. On the strength side, the AUM over the last 5 years has grown at a CAGR of 36%, which is very strong. And their asset quality has remained under control. So gross NPA has been in the range of 0.8 to 1.2% no matter what the recognition norms are. And that's return ratios. Now that is one of the best in the industry. 4% ROA and a 22-24% kind of an ROE that it has clocked over the last 5 years. Now look at the weakness. The weakness is they have a very lower provision coverage ratio. The provision coverage ratio is about 15 to 16%. And then the other weakness is that their book churns very fast. So this requires faster momentum, faster capital and money for growth. Opportunity is that they are actually a very small base and they operate in a lower penetrated geography. So that provides a scalable opportunity. On the threat side, 2 states, geographical concentration risk can be mentioned, Gujarat and Maharashtra forms about 80%. So if you look at the peer comparison in terms of valuation, this IPO is priced at a price to book value of 3.1, while other NBFCs are between 2.5 to 3 on a 1-year forward basis. But looking at the return ratios and asset quality, analysts on street are giving a thumbs up to this IPO. Back to you.
Okay, Abhishek, so the analysts are giving a thumbs up to this particular IPO, but let's shift focus now. As CNBC TV18 celebrates Daan Utsav, we get you some of the top corporates and their social responsibility initiatives. Here is Kakuna Khate of Bank of America Merrill Lynch, highlighting the importance of giving back to the society.
For Bank of America, it's the core. So we have always, through the years, always wanted to contribute to the communities where we have been operating. So whether you look at what we did with Anwari Suhaili, which was the Panchatantra's extension, where we restored it, or where we have worked with the NGOs, we were working with some of them way before the CSR came. Of course, the CSR lent us a lot more grants that we could give, and the initiative is very core to the team in India, right from the execution to actually really imbibing some of these things.
How do you go about imbibing that in your work culture? I mean, not just that, but in your entire business of lending, where does philanthropy play a role?
So what we have done, at least at the bank, is rather than just appointing someone who helps us with the grant, and then we just kind of choose the institution, we have gone one step further. So we started off creating a philanthropy committee, and then subsequent to that we said, what are we really good at? So as you know, in equities, we are good at actually having research to make an investment where you are really putting your mouth where your money is, basically, or money where your mouth is. So similarly, what we decided is, why not have an approach where we really reach out to some of the best in the industries, consult them, really do diligence around it, go to the depth of it, and then shortlist the NGOs that we want to do based on the cause that we want to really propose, and then kind of invest and work with them to then build these schemes.
But it must be difficult to pick a particular cause, especially in a country like India, where we're lagging behind in so many, socio-economic parameters. How do you at Bank of America go about selecting a particular cause and working with them?
So there are a few which are global causes. So we have always believed in supporting women and children. We have always believed in art and culture. And then we have also believed in green energy. So the broad themes were already known to us. After a lot of debate came out, is that we want to back a specifically subsector between women and children, which is the adolescent girls. Because India has a young population, there are a lot of women. The 10 to 19 age of the adolescent girl is not where you really see typical funding. Funding is coming for children. Funding is coming for livelihood for women. So we thought it's best to really work with Asra and create thought leadership and get funding for adolescent girls.
Let's take a check of what's happening in the world of commodities, and Manisha Gupta joins us for that. Good morning, Manisha. What do you tell us? What is making headlines in the world of commodities?
Well, thank you for that. Various individual fundamentals really, which seem to be pushing the commodity prices on either side. Starting with the crude oil prices, and there's a new development in the weather hurricane. There's a new storm by the name of Nate, which seems to be headed towards Gulf of Mexico, and that's keeping the prices on the higher side. Remember, we have seen a lot of damage to the oil supplies and facilities in the recent few months because of Hurricanes Harvey and Irma, and the new hurricane headed in that direction is adding premium to those prices. So that is something that the markets would want to watch out for the weekend. The other thing really also has been about weather. There has been an earthquake in Chile, and that led to the copper prices gaining up by 3% in the New York session yesterday. Well, we already have seen a copper deficit in the first half of 2017, and this would just add to the worries. We did see the copper prices almost gaining up to 3-year highs in the markets yesterday. And Asia, even as you have no China participation, we are looking at the axis trade actually trading in the positive for many of these metals at this point.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Manisha. Well, let's hop across. Mangalam Alu standing by. He's going to tell us all the cues that are coming in from the derivatives market. Mangalam, you're smiling this morning. Looks like you've got some cues, and I understand it's the big weekend. The birthday weekend. Woof, we've got a party this weekend.
I don't know about the party this weekend or not, but decent cues coming from the futures and options space. We'll talk about the birthday future later. Yesterday, the FIs, they sold about 500 crores in index futures. The first sell figure that we saw in this series, really. But that was primarily on account of some long positions being unwound after yesterday's mild underperformance on the Nifty. There was a lot of buying in index options as well, though one would refrain from commenting on what exactly took place there, given that yesterday was Bank Nifty weekly options expiry as well, so the data would be a little muddled out there. But what really stood out was, despite the underperformance of the Nifty in yesterday's trading session, the Nifty futures premium, that one has gone from high single digits on October 3rd all the way up to 20 points in yesterday's trading session. So that's a positive. We saw some action on the 10,000 as well as the 9,900 call. Let's see what happens out there in today's trading session. Two stocks I'll watch out for, BEML and DHFL. Both of them were buzzing around in yesterday's trading session, entered the F&O ban, and then we saw a lot of long positions added in Just Dial, the likes of Adani Enterprises, Jubilant Food, and a couple of textile companies, Indocount as well as Arvind.
Okay, Mangalam, thank you for that. We will surely be preparing for a party this coming weekend. Lunch on Monday and probably a party over the weekend. Nobody can bully you, Mangalam.
Lunch is a given, Mangalam.
All right, lunch is a given.
Thank you.
Okay, so on that note, let's move on to the Bullseye Corner then. Our contestants this week, Richard Jain, Rakesh Bansal and Vishal Malkan, are battling it out for the strongest portfolio. Let's hear their picks for the day 4 of the week.
My first call today is a buy call in Coromandel International with stop loss below 446 for target of 478. My second pick is a buy call in Gujarat Gas with stop loss below 880 for target of 945. My third call is a buy call in Just Dial with stop loss below 379 for target of 416. And my last pick is a sell call in Apollo Tyres with stop loss about 244 for target of 227.
My first call is a buy call on Ganesha Benzoplast by Ganesha Benzoplast. Stop loss 78.50, target 107. My second call is a buy call on SPIC, Southern Petrochemical by SPIC. Stop loss 31.90, target 48. My third call is a buy call on Adani Enterprises by Adani Enterprises. Stop loss 115.90, target 130. My last call is a buy call on Bharat Financial by Bharat Financial. Stop loss 940, target 1000.
Century Textile buy with a stop of 1230 for targets of 1290. Reliance Infra buy with a stop of 460 for targets of 495. Genesis buy with a stop of 334 for targets of 380. And Allahabad Bank buy with a stop of 65 for targets of 71.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up on Power Breakfast. You stay with us. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next.